Oh, straight into the roof of the net. Nice one. Straight down the middle. So a good performance from both teams.
Hello, you're watching Firstpost. I'm Rupha Ramani. Let's get started. Right on the show today, New Zealand cricketer and current coach of the Chennai Super Kings franchise at the IPL, Stephen Fleming, is speculated to be in the BCCI's radar as coach of the Indian men's cricket team. Why is Fleming an ideal fit for the job? Also a deep dive into the reason that makes Manchester City a beast today. We say this is very similar to the most dominant side at one time. Is Man City of now the Man United of 2000s? We'll show you how. And staying with football but crossing over to Malaysia, why are their national footballers living in fear? An acid attack, car vandalized, daylight threats. The national footballers are under siege, but why? And is there a link between all of these attacks that seem random? Stay on for all of that, but first a look at all the headlines in Sports 360. We'll start with cricket. Reports say Team India have been allotted the second semi-final at the T20 World Cup. That is if they get there. The second semi-final will take place in Guyana on the 27th of June. The decision was made keeping in mind the timing so that the India game is viewed at 8 p.m. here in India. But here's the catch. The finalists of the second semi-final will get no break heading into the big one. Over in football, Real Madrid thumped visitors Alaves 5-0 in La Liga yesterday. Jude Bellingham opened the scoring for Real in the 10th minute. Vinicius Jr. scored twice, once in each half of the game. Other names on Real's score sheet were Arda Güler and Federico Valverde. In baseball, LA Dodgers star Shohei Ohtani's former interpreter Ippei Mizuhara appeared at court. Mizuhara pleaded not guilty to the federal charges as formality. To kickstart the trial, Mizuhara has been accused of stealing $17 million from Ohtani's account to clear his gambling debts. Over in the NBA, Denver Nuggets beat Minnesota Timberwolves 112-97 in NBA playoffs semi-final. Nikola Jokic scored 40 points in a pivotal game 5 to torture Timberwolves. Nuggets now lead the series 3-2 with 2 more games left. Tennis legend Serena Williams is set to host the 2024 ESPY Awards. It's an annual award function hosted to honor the best athletes in the world. Williams will be the 4th female host in ESPY's 31-year-long history. Williams herself was the recipient of the Best Female Athlete Award twice during her career. And in Formula One, they've launched a new talent scheme. The motive behind the scheme is to mentor next-generation female drivers. It will also aim to remove the gender imbalance in the sport. Formula One has not had a woman start a Grand Prix since Leila Lombardi, who last featured in the Austria Grand Prix in 1976. Now, the BCCI, or the Indian Cricket Board, is in the lookout for a new coach to manage the men's cricket team. Rahul Dravid, who is currently at the helm, will wrap up his charge by June with the T20 World Cup. Looks like the last shot at glory for him and a few others in the Indian contingent. Now, the Indian men's cricket team has had Indian coaches for a while now. And while it has been interesting stints with Ravi Shastri and Rahul Dravid, and they have delivered quite a few powerful moments, the big ICC wins have not really come by. There was a time when the Indian men's cricket squad only had foreign coaches, non-Indian coaches. And while a few of their tenures were quite acrimonious, and we'll get to that in a bit, there have been a couple of memorable ones. But there definitely seems to be an affinity for the Kiwis, and it's probably this love for New Zealand that has sparked off speculations of a certain Chennai Super King being roped in. New Zealand have always been the good guys of world cricket, we all know that. They've got a calm sense about them. Their leaders have a cool mind, they're affable, and there are plenty of examples of that. From Kane Williamson to Daniel Vettori, Tom Latham, Ross Taylor, all cool and composed leaders. They bring a sort of calm energy to the dressing rooms that they are a part of. And that's something absolutely crucial when you look at any international setup, because with it comes a lot of tension, a lot of pressures. It's intense out there. Let's look at the last time India had a New Zealander as coach. It was the year 2000. John Wright was in charge back then, and India managed to win an ICC event under his helm. the Champions Trophy, and then came close to winning a second one, the ODI World Cup in 2003, where they finally lost in Australia in the last hurdle. But John Wright's tenure was brilliant. Sourav Ganguly was the skipper, and John Wright, who loved to be in the background, was the perfect foil for the flamboyant Sourav Ganguly. It was a very, very good combination. Of course, after that came the most volatile time in Indian cricket. The media certainly had the field day when the board decided to go with the Aussie way and rope in Greg Chappell. That stint lasted just 2 years, and that too very miraculously it lasted that long. The various run-ins with Ganguly and the heated face-offs that Chappell had with the other seniors in the side, showing the finger to an Indian crowd, the tempers were glowing and were unchecked. And clearly Australia's hot-headed Chappell as an Indian coach was a concoction that exploded. Then, of course, came in the calm after that storm with Gary Kirsten, and again India had a wonderful reign, capping it off with the World Cup win in 2011 at India. The tenure that followed was another weird one, with England's Duncan Fletcher taking over. That lasted about 4 years, but it did nothing much to the general makeup of the team. They did win the ICC Champions Trophy in England, so probably one thing went right. But fresh speculations has now emerged that Stephen Fleming, a former New Zealand captain, could be in the running for this job. Now, why is he perfect for this role? Now, I observed Fleming much like Gary Kirsten from up close when I was part of the Chennai Super Kings franchise, and he knows how to get along with just about everyone. There's a reason he's lasted that long in the Chennai Super Kings franchise, in a setup where MS Dhoni calls the shots and he's the captain. A coach has to be able to manage a team, get the best out of everyone there, make sure there is no friction, keep a healthy dressing room going, set a bit of a routine that has his or her own individual stamp. Stephen Fleming has done that. He seamlessly transitioned from a CSK player to a coach right there in that franchise. So not only did he manage to learn the ways of the ownership, he gelled well in that setup, and quite honestly, his nature, which is easygoing, very approachable, laid back and disciplined, all of that mixed with that dash of dry Kiwi wit and humor that very few have seen him use, have been key to his successful tenure as the coach of Chennai Super Kings. And it's not surprising that BCCI in their next phase, where the goal of course would be an ICC silverware in whatever format, will want a calm mentor who can be an asset as a strategist too. Because Fleming has captained his side for 10 years. Only Kane Williamson has done so for more than 10 years. In fact, a little more than that. So that's wealth of knowledge as a leader. In this next phase for Indian men's cricket, we are likely to see a new captain at the helm, the post-Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli era. So you need a coach who probably has been captain as well, someone who can pass on valuable insights as a leader on the field too, not just someone who can manage a dressing room from behind. And in that regard, no one can quite be a better fit than Flem, as he's fondly called. That's the enigma, the patience, the calm aura that he lends to any side. He has been a quiet and calm force in the IPL setup for Chennai. There is a lot of faith and love that he has from that franchise, and it'll be no surprise if the Indian setup goes the Kiwi way once again. Now, it has been a bit of a roller coaster ride this Premier League season. About 2 days ago, the title was in Arsenal's favour. But yesterday, Pep Guardiola once again proved that it is not easy to take away a trophy, especially from him. Most definitely, the Premier League. Manchester City beat Tottenham 2-0 in a game that saw City's dominance. And it was their star player Erling Haaland who stepped up when it mattered the most. Scored twice in the second half to secure City's victory, pushing them on top of the points table, 2 points ahead of second-placed Arsenal and just one more game left in the season. The title is pretty much City's to lose now. A 6th title in the last 7 seasons. That's some dominance in the league. But our story today isn't about Manchester City's title race. Today we're doing a deep dive into the meteoric rise of Manchester City as a football club, and drawing parallels to that of the city rivals, Manchester United, at one point in the past. I am walking on edge here, comparing two of the biggest rivals, but the similarities are such. City are achieving what United only did in the early 2000s, an era where Manchester United and Alex Ferguson dominated the English Premier League, and 20 years later, it's Pep Guardiola and Manchester City that are emulating that same feat. The manager's entry became the biggest differentiator for both these clubs. The club grew and started dominating and transformed into a dominant side post-Fergie, especially for Manchester United, and Guardiola for City. Now hear me out. Before Alex Ferguson's arrival, Manchester United were a decent club, but not the most glorious side in England. Before Alex Ferguson took charge in 1986, United had only won 7 league titles in their history. And Ferguson, in his 27 years, won them 13 league titles. That was the dominance of Alex Ferguson in the 90s and the 2000s. When it comes to City, while the number of league titles may not be similar and it might not be of the extent that we have of Manchester United, but of course. But ever since Guardiola's arrival, City has seen a similar boost in their league titles, like United did with Fergie. Guardiola stands on the cusp of another trophy here. In City's history, they only won 3 league titles, whereas Guardiola, in his 8 seasons alone so far, has already won 5 league titles and is on the cusp of winning them the 7th. And the similarities don't end here. United were the only English club to win the treble in 1999. The Premier League title, the Champions League title, and the FA Cup, all in the same year. And just last year, Pep Guardiola and his City side achieved the same feat, making them the only 2 English clubs to have done this. It's hard to believe that not too long ago, Manchester City was synonymous with mid-table mediocrity. But all that changed with the arrival of one man at the helm, Pep Guardiola, a similar impact that Ferguson has had on United in the past. It isn't just the managers, of course, that draw these comparisons, but also the players. I'll tell you a little more. Like City has a young force in Haaland. Currently, football enthusiasts will remember how Cristiano Ronaldo used to dazzle the world in the mid-2000s. Now, I'm not comparing the 2 players here. That would be wrong. Just what they did and meant for their individual sides during that time to contribute to the club's greatness. The star power these 2 brought to their respective clubs, Haaland's arrival has added a new dimension to City's attack, making them even more lethal in front of goal, something that Ronaldo's arrival did at United. And this is the thing about having a star player. The opposition fears you, and anybody in the world would be scared to face a prime Haaland or a prime Ronaldo. Moving on, let's not forget about the homegrown talents here. While City have often been criticized for buying players, their recent academy player Phil Foden has blossomed under Guardiola's guidance. And back in the day, United had the luxury of Paul Scholes, who played a similar position to that of Foden now. Both the players have been crucial in the midfield of their individual sides. While Scholes retired as a decorated player for United, Foden still is making his way in the world of football. But his recent performances are proof of his abilities being in the same zone as that of Scholes. But perhaps the most striking parallel between Manchester City and Manchester United of old is their ability to consistently win silverware. And just like Sir Alex Ferguson's United, City have also had their fair share of memorable moments. You remember the Arsenal Invincibles, the Arsene Wenger side that had the potential to beat United at every front. United were so fierce that they only let Arsenal win that league just one time back in 2004. That is what City has done to Liverpool. Despite mega stars in their camp and a solid manager in Jurgen Klopp, City denied Liverpool a title every season except for their only triumph that came around 3 to 4 years back, 2020. No matter how much the fans deny any similarity between the 2 rivals, and I'm sure that'll be loud, and I will get quite a bit coming right at me, but you cannot ignore the similarities here, which are basically the pathway to success for both these sides, like a bit of a blueprint of the different times. Manchester City's evolution from underdogs to dominance is a story that United themselves experienced under Ferguson's arrival and his reign. And the 2 teams may have been powerful in different eras, but their trajectory and recipe to succeed at the biggest level have been quite the same. While United ruled Premier League for 2 decades, feels like City, with a 6th Premier League title in sight, are only just getting started. Now, our focus today, of course, is on a series of shocking events around Malaysian footballers that have shaken the nation to its core. Over the past few weeks, Malaysia has been rocked by a number of concerted attacks on their footballers, from robberies, threats to acid attacks and vandalism. The country's footballers are being targeted, and the safety of players has become a bit of a major concern now. But why has this been happening, and is there a link to all of these attacks? 6 years ago, former Malaysia team captain Safiq Rahim, who also plays for the JDT football club in Malaysia, narrowly escaped harm after being threatened with a hammer by two men on a motorcycle.
Two men on a motorcycle suddenly approached my car armed with a hammer and smashed my rear car windscreen. Didn't expect to be attacked near the Johor Darul Tazim training center. We need to be vigilant.
Now, a traumatic experience for anyone out there. Rahim's attack wasn't an isolated incident. Just days earlier, another national team player, Faisal Halim, a talented one from Selangor Football Club, was the victim of a horrific acid attack. The attack happened in the Petaling district in Malaysia, an attack that left the player with severe burns. Halim is the same one who starred in Malaysia's match against South Korea in the AFC Asia Cup. He scored a magnificent goal in their 3-all draw, in fact, against Korea. The 26-year-old is called Mickey for his fast and skillful hold on the football. He has been touted for bigger things, but the attack has put a pause to his promising career. Despite facing this adversity, Faisal has shown incredible resilience, which we've seen on the football pitch, and now onto real life, where he's fighting to recover from this acid attack. He spent 2 weeks in the ICU before being finally moved to the ward. Faisal's condition is improving, but no one can be really certain how soon the footballer will be able to make his comeback. Before Faisal, of course, it was Akhyar Rashid, another prominent national player who also features for the JDT football club. He was injured during a robbery outside his home. Rashid was returning home after a training session, and before he could reach his house, he was attacked with an iron rod by masked robbers. The attack left him with stitches on his head and his legs. 3 attacks on some of the biggest names in Malaysian football raises a lot of questions. Why are these attacks happening? They all have been differently executed, yet the target is all of the country's top footballers. So is there a larger connection? If so, what is it? Is there something more sinister at play?
We have to wait for the police report to know the motive of the attacks. For now, we don't think they are linked in any way, but let's wait for the official report to know what has happened. We have concerns and have spoken to all the authorities about it. While these attacks are not within the Malaysian Football League's jurisdiction of matches or stadiums, etc., we have taken steps towards ensuring that more security and precautions are taken immediately.
These sort of attacks on athletes in Malaysia is unprecedented. It's not something that you see, unlike in Colombia, where such cases were a common occurrence until 2010. Be it Andre Escobar being shot dead in 1994 after Colombia got knocked out of the World Cup, or in 2009, a jaw-dropping incident where 12 members of a Colombian amateur association football team, Los Manciros, were kidnapped, out of which 11 were later murdered. The motive still remains a mystery, but in Malaysia, these things don't happen. Sportspersons are never attacked, which is why this series of seemingly random events and threats are horrifying and have raised the alarm bells. So what is the reason behind these attacks? There could be various motives at play here, from personal vendettas to organized crime. What makes these crimes even more possible is the access. Unlike Europe, South America, or other prominent football areas, Malaysia and its athletes interact more freely with the public. Fans or general public have more access and a restriction-free entry into training areas. They can sit next to players at canteen tables, or even strike up conversations with players as they enter and exit stadiums. The security is hardly a presence, or even a factor to be considered. A stark difference from the way things are seen here in India, for example. Theories about gambling gangs and match-fixing tycoons are also doing the rounds. These incidents have clearly disturbed the football fraternity in Malaysia. The football season, in fact, the opener, was cancelled just some days ago due to security concerns raised by Selangor Football Club post these attacks. While the league matches went ahead without any cancellations, the security concerns raised by Selangor players highlight the sense of fear that is growing within this community. Time for last serve. Now, we all witnessed a very emotional Roger Federer, along with a lot of the other players, his peers, at Laver Cup when he bid goodbye. It was a total tearjerker for all tennis fans who were watching the world over. And in a new documentary, we will get to see the final 12 days before Federer hung up his boots and his racket. Up close and personal, here's a trailer of the documentary that is slated to release on the 20th of June. Can't wait for that one, but that does it here on Firstpost today. Thanks for joining in. I'll see you again tomorrow. Till then, bye-bye.